What are the person less than? Less than your husband, less than someone you're with before who had those traits, and your current partner hasn't got those traits. Again, bring it to someone who is of authority, minister of religion, a pastor, a therapist. Go to them. This is when all else fails. You're not able to resolve it by yourselves. Do not do what is not you, because a lot of times you find, okay, I leave the house untidy, I leave the things, this is not me, this is not what I'm used to doing. But you're doing it because your spouse is not as clean as you, your spouse is not as tidy as you, and you've been a very happy home as a result of that. And then just pray about it, pray for them, and God will change them, because obviously you as a person, you cannot change your spouse. Hello and welcome again to our podcast. Welcome to Let's Talk Marital podcast. We're happy to have you listening to us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the love you're showing us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. Continue doing so. And hope you're blessed as you continue to watch this and to listen to us. Subscribe to our podcast, Let's Talk Marital podcast. The link is on the description there. We are on the socials. We are on TikTok. We are on Instagram. And of course on YouTube. Let's Talk Marital podcast with the hashtag. Follow us and be blessed. Our episode today is, do I have to settle for less? Settling for less as in terms of your in your relationship, in your marriage, so to speak. Is this what you expected when you met them? At the time of meeting with them and you're courting, before you make that commitment to be with them, how did you find them? Do you think you could handle them? Do you think that you're happy with the way they are? Do you think that they're at the same level as you, so to speak? Or are you settling for less and just being like, you know what, I can work with this, and this is something that even if it goes into a relationship, it goes into a marriage, I'll be able to cope with. If your husband is not like your dad and is not a fix-it guy and doesn't do the work around the house, like repairing the kitchen appliances, doing home improvements, etc., do you settle for less? Do you want, as a wife, as a woman, a man who is like your dad, who does all the fix-it things, who is a kind of DIY person, who does the things around the house, who is able to fix it? Not all men like that. Most men are able to do stuff around the house. Other men are probably those ones of, if they're not able to do the things, they probably call a handyman, they call someone to come and help them out, pay someone. Or does the wife not expect to call the dad to come and do it? Or are you going to settle for less, that, he's not like that? What do I do? Do I do it myself? Do I get angry because he's not able to do the things that I expect him to do as a man? So that's the issues of someone settling for less in terms of what they're able to bring into the party, what they're able to bring to the table in that relationship. To figure out that question, we ask ourselves, less than what? What are the person less than? Less than your husband, less than someone you're with before who had those traits, and your current partner hasn't got those traits. So you think, he's not going to be able to be as clean as I am, do the things the way I'd expect them. So am I settling for less? Am I settling for a dirtier house? Am I settling for an untidy house? Because this person is not what I expect them to be. They are not at the standard that I am at. Frequently, marital disappointments are based on our expectations, what we thought life would be after marrying. We have this expectation that we put someone on that level where this is where I'm expecting them to be like me, or like someone who I've looked up to. And then when you get into the marriage and they are not like that, you get disappointed. So it's something that you need to talk about before you get married. You need to know that, if they're not able to meet your needs in that sense of being able to be the handyman around the house, do the school run, even take out the bins, simple things like that, are you going to be able to be doing it yourself, or are you settling for less, that they're not able to do that, so you have to step up as a spouse and do them? It could also be the other way around. It could also be the man settling for less as a woman. When I say settling for less, it actually doesn't sound that good, but as in lowering your standards, lowering your expectations, because you love this person, because there's other traits, there's other things that this person does that are strong traits that have brought you together, that are able to bring out the best in him, so that your marriage may flourish. How am I reacting? If they're not as clean as I am, and that's the standard I've set myself, how am I reacting? Am I trying to clean up for them? Am I kicking off because they're not as clean as I expect them to be? and I want them to be that clean. Is that an unfair judgment? Is that an unfair way of looking at things? Because I could be that clean, I could be that untidy, but they're not. So do I kick off? Do I keep on correcting them? Do I keep on putting things together and letting them know that this is how I want things done, so that they can be how I want them to be? Or do I settle for less, as in leave the things untidy? Okay, they are not tidy. Let me leave them untidy as they are. They are not clean. Okay, I'm not going to clean as well. Leave it as it is, and let's live in an environment which is not what I'm used to. Obviously, when you're courting, there's a period of where you're getting to know the person. So it's very important to know what they are like, so that when you eventually meet them, when the rubber hits the road, when you're actually in that situation, when you're actually in that relationship or marriage, it doesn't come as a surprise to you that this is how they are. You already knew that they were like that. So you actually you knew that this is what you're getting into. This is what you're signing up to. And you're not going to be disappointed. You're not going to now start settling for less because you're like, oh, wow, now I'm here now, I've got to now work with this. I've got to now find a way to make this work. And maybe it's not what it's not the standard you're used to, and it doesn't keep you happy. So it's good to know them before you commit to that marriage, to that relationship, so that you don't get disappointed ahead when you're already a year or two. As soon as you get married, when someone's obviously now, or the true colors come out, and now you get to know them properly. Is my dissatisfaction based on comparison? Am I comparing them to someone else? Am I comparing them to my dad, to my to a father figure, or to even a relationship that I was in before, and expecting them to be like that? Am I expecting them to be like, because so and so was as clean as they are, now I've met them, I expect them to be this clean, or they used to do things in a certain way, I expect them to, it's a very bad way to compare, and the person you're with might kind of pick on that, and they might see you actually trying to compare on them, and they might actually end up being stressed out and kind of even walking on eggshells, because they're probably trying to please you, because they can see that you're not happy with your level of cleanliness, your level of tidiness, or not being able to do the DIY in the house or to do stuff in the house. And in their bid to try and please you, they will not be themselves. They just be doing things because they want to please you and because you're their spouse, which is a good thing. But again, people need to, you as a spouse, you in the relationship, you need to be at ease. You need to be happy together. You need to be relaxed. It doesn't need to be an atmosphere where you're thinking, if I leave the dirty dishes there, which is what I'm used to doing, my spouse is not happy, so I'm going to make sure that I do it for her. You're doing it because you're making the place clean, so to speak, not so much she doesn't kick off or he doesn't, complain about you leaving things around. Do not put yourself at such a high standard and expect your spouse to be the same, because when you meet, I believe that when you meet a spouse, God always gives you someone who compliments you. God always gives you someone who will bring out the best out of you, will make your traits shine out. You don't always have to be, it's very rare that you have people who are similar traits, who have do things the same way. You always have to, there'll be always those differences. That's why I think they always say, unlike poles attract, isn't it? Unlike poles repel. So if my spouse likes shouting and I like shouting, well, if I shout and she's, I'm a loud person and they're the loud person, you find that might not be a very good thing in the household. You'll always have to have someone who's maybe quite loud and the other person is quite mellow, and then they complement each other so that one knows how to bring the other one down in case of that kind of if they're having a debate, if you like. So God never gives you someone who will get the worst out of you, if you like. You always have to have someone who will bring the best out of you, and they'll have the talents in them that you, as a spouse, are able to bring them out and make that person better, and make that marriage or make that relationship work out. And when people see it, they'll be like, wow, okay, these two are meant to be together. It's only because the way God put you together, he knew what he was doing. 3 ways not to deal with the question of settling for less. You've got the self-centered approach. It's not fair that I don't get to be happy, you might say. Instead of saying it this way, why don't you say, is there anything my spouse can do to improve the situation? If you don't like the way your spouse does things, instead of saying, yeah, like it says there, the writer says, I'm not happy, he keeps doing X, Y, Z. They keep leaving their dishes. They keep, Maybe ask them, is there a better way I can do this? Can I leave my shoes in an orderly in a place where they don't have to? They're not in your way. You're not tripping over them. Can I clean up? I don't have to clean up the dishes now after we've eaten. I can clean them up a bit later when we've sat down and we've unwound and we're all in a relaxed mood. Then I can clean up, because maybe your spouse likes after dinner clean the dishes, do everything, and then sit down. But that's not the way you do them as the other spouse. So you can ask your spouse, can I do them differently? Can I do them in a way, can I do them after we've eaten, later on, so that it doesn't have to, so that your spouse knows what you're thinking, what you're doing, and they're not going to get upset about it. Then you're not being self-centered, or they're not being self-centered by thinking, oh, I want them to do this such and such a thing in a certain way. Does she understand how important it is to me? Of course, if it's important to you, then you speak about it. You know that this is important to me, in a loving way. In a loving way, I would like you to do this like this. I'd like you to do that. So it doesn't also feel like you're telling them off. Because again, if there's a position where you're telling them off, then it doesn't go down very well. And then that's where maybe the argument starts, or that's where you start getting in a place where you're all in an uptight position. Your job may be to love and accept the one you've chosen, and trust God to motivate change according to His plan. Yeah, ask God to change them, because you cannot change that person. We go into relationships and expecting that we're going to change the person you're with. But more often than not, you might not change them for the better. You might change them and they might resent you. You might change them and then they might just end up being angry. So just pray to God. Let God change. If you're in that situation where you're not happy about something that your spouse is doing or does, let God take control. Pray about it. Let God will change that person. Do your part as a spouse to do what you need to do, and to put things clean, and without complaining and without expecting that, oh, they're not doing this, so I'm gonna be angry. Or do your part, and sooner or later you find that even your spouse will follow suit. You'll be like, okay, he or she is doing like this. This is what is important to them. They'll follow suit. And you've been a very happy home as a result of that. And then just pray about it. Pray for them, and God will change them, because obviously you as a person, you cannot change your spouse. The cynical approach. Your spouse hasn't changed as you want them to change. Maybe you'll have to put up with that for the rest of your life. You can choose to focus on what you love and cherish in your spouse. Very important. Look at their traits. Look at what they love, what their strong points are. Focus on those. Bring out the best in them in those traits. And then you find that when you focus on the good things that they do, maybe these are the things that you're not happy about or they're not happy about, will be minimal. Will not even make you have any arguments. If they have talents that they want to, if they want to go to school and study for something that will improve their lives and they're passionate about, encourage them to do that. If they have a hobby that they want to do, that they have maybe started, or they want to start, or they've been doing it, and encourage them to carry on doing it, and let that come out so that it can show the best in them. And that way you find that you're both happy, because you're bringing out the best in your spouse. And even these are the trivial things, even these are little things that are not making your spouse happy, will become minimal, and they won't affect your relationship, because you're focusing on the things that are more beneficial to your spouse. Then you can have the vengeful approach. If I have to settle for less, so does he. One might be hard saying. I suppose we've all thought about the get even approach. So if I'm settling for less, then you expect him to settle for less as well. If I'm leaving the house, if he's leaving the house untidy, I'm gonna leave you untidy as well. If they're not washing if they're not gonna help me clean, then I'm not gonna clean as well. That's a vengeful approach. We shouldn't have that approach, because you should always do what is best in that relationship. Do what is best for you. Do not do what is not making you happy. Do not do what you don't normally do. Do not do what is not you. Because a lot of times you find, okay, I leave the house untidy. I leave the things. This is not me. This is not what I'm used to doing. But you're doing it because your spouse is not as clean as you. Your spouse is not as tidy as you. You're not putting up the shelves because that's your strength, or that's his strength. Because he's not doing it, or I won't do it as well. Let's both settle for less. That's a very cynical approach to take. A vengeful approach, actually. So do not settle for vengeance, because then it's gonna be a very frosty relationship. It's gonna lead to arguments, because you're like, okay, or it's just gonna be like because your spouse is gonna say that. They will see that, okay, these days you don't clean the house. Oh, okay, you used to be like this. So what happened? Oh, okay. I used to clean up before. I don't clean anymore. Could be something that I'm doing. And if you talk about it, they might even tell you, yeah, you're not clean, so I'm not gonna be clean either. You don't take out the beans. I'm not gonna take out the beans either. So you end up settling for less. You end up both being at a place where you're not doing what you should do to elevate yourself into a different area where both of you are happy, where both of you are doing what you should do in the marriage, where you're doing God's purpose and you're happy and you're fulfilling what God has put you to do in that relationship. Anger and bitterness will eat away into your relationship. So when you have a vengeful approach, then you end up being angry. You end up being resentful. You end up resenting your partner. You end up resenting them because they're not doing what is expected of you. You've put them in this. You've put yourself in this pedestal, or you've put that expectation where you're expecting this because you've seen it maybe in your friends' relationships, or in the relationship you're in before, or in your dad, and because you're not doing it, now anger and resentment sets in. If you aren't able to make the progress alone in dealing with these feelings, get help. Bring them to a pastor or a counselor's office for discussion and prayer. That is always the ultimate. Maybe when you start things going wrong, pray about it first. Bring that to God. Let God do His will. And then, of course, again, go to a therapist or go to a pastor, depending on your religious beliefs. Let them see things, because obviously someone who is independent will see things from a different point of view. They're not going to be biased. They're not going to be taking anyone's side. Both of you go to the therapist, talk to them, say this is what's happening, and get help. And that always goes a very long way to help in that situation. 1 Peter 3:8 verse 9 says, "Finally, all of you live in harmony with one another. Be sympathetic. Love as brothers. Be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil." That's where the anger and bitterness come in. Because they're not doing, I'm not going to do. Because it's not happening, I'm not going to do. So it becomes like a my dad's bigger than your dad kind of thing, where you have kids in the playground where, you fight, you're trying to score points over each other. But do not repay evil with evil, or insult with insult, but blessing, because to this you are called, so that you might inherit a blessing. Always be a blessing to your partner. Always be a blessing in everything that they do, everything that you do. Show them that you love them, even though sometimes it might not look that way at that point. But you can even say, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this because of you. I'm doing this because this is what you love. I'm doing this because it's important for you. And that way you'll be a blessing to your spouse. That way they will see that, oh wow, okay, even though they are not where I expect them to be in terms of the expectations I had when we got together, I can clearly see that they're trying their best, and you explain in the situation, you explain, this is why I'm doing this. So it's important to have that dialogue and say, oh, this is why this is happening. This is why I left the dishes. I didn't wash them. I was going to wash them later. I was going to fix the cupboard later. I didn't leave that on purpose. So your spouse knows. So your spouse knows that, this is the reason why it's happened. They're not second guessing. They're not coming home and they're angry because they're thinking, oh, why did you not do this? Why is there no food cooked? Why is there no, why did you not do the washing up? Put the clothes I put the clothes up to dry. Why did you not remove them? Maybe you didn't have time. Maybe you were rushing off, and your partner comes and they're second guessing, thinking now you did it on purpose and so on. So when you explain to them the situation, then even though you haven't done it when they expected you to do it, because maybe they have that expectation of this is how I do things, this is what I expect. Then when you explain the situation, then you find that there'll be less argument, there'll be no arguments in the house. You'll have a happy marriage and happy relationship. Are you struggling with settling for less where your spouse is concerned? Here are 5 things to remember. You're not alone. God loves you. God knows about your situation. He wants more for you than you could ever imagine. Always pray about it. Always pray about it. There's no situation that you can be in that God cannot deal with, that God cannot take you out of, that God cannot provide a solution to. You know that God always loves you. And He knows about your situation. Bring the situation to Him, pray about it, and you'll be surprised how He will move in your life. Accepting your mate as he or she really is. demonstrates your growth in maturity and love. This is something that maybe a lot of spouses struggle with, accepting your mate as they are, because you're always trying to change your spouse. You're always trying to think, oh, I wish they were like this. Or why don't they do things this way? Or why don't they, why are they not like so and so? But when you accept your mate as they are, then it shows your maturity. It shows that, you're accepting them and you're kind of saying, let God deal with the situation. Let God change them. And that way, you'll be a happy person in that relationship. And it shows maturity. That goes hand in hand with forgiving his or her shortcomings. And then, of course, when they do something that you're not happy about, you're forgiving them. Forgive them for their shortcomings. Don't keep bringing them up all the time. When the situation has happened and you're both at a place where you're happy about it, let that be a clean slate. Don't bring it up again. Such and such time you did this, such and such time you did this. Forgive them their shortcomings, because we all like we say, no one is perfect. We've all been at a place where we all make mistakes. We keep making mistakes and we keep learning. It doesn't matter what age you are. There's always evolution. There's always developing. There's always learning new things as a human being. If you respectfully discuss your unmet expectations with your spouse, change may be possible. Yeah, discuss expectations. But I think, again, this one is more to do you discussing before you actually get in that relationship. Before, when you already know that this is how your spouse is and you haven't committed fully, maybe you haven't gotten married to them or you haven't started living with them, and you actually know that these are some traits you're not able to, you will struggle with, so to speak. So it is very important to discuss with your mate to see how both of you are going to be compatible, to see how you can help each other so that you don't clash when you get into that relationship. Speak about it. Say, hey, yeah, I see there's a struggle in this. Is there a way I can help? Is there a way we can work through this? Can we even get help together before we get into this relationship? How are you going to deal with this when we get in this situation? How are you going to deal with not having money? It's always it's always hunky dory. It's always plain sailing when there's money and things are going well. But when the rubber hits the road, when things are tight, it's another thing. Having an expectation that your spouse will always have money, always has money. But even spoken about what happens when you haven't got the money. What happens when the school fees is due and and there's no money. We don't know what to do. How are you going to deal? So it's always good to talk about things in advance beforehand, and then know how you're going to approach them when the actual thing happens. Then consider whether your spouse is already accepting and forgiving some of the traits of yours that he or she would prefer to see changed. Are they able to live with the fact that you snore at night? Like I say, no washing the dishes. I mean, that's a typical example when you expect them to. Taking the bin out. I think that's just standard. A lot of men actually tend to do that. Leaving things lying around. Men are always accused of leaving things, clothes, items of clothing lying around and so on, or shoes in the wrong place. You left this here and I put them here. Or a woman expects things to be in a certain way. So are you accepting all those traits? Are you accepting that you can you are able to forgive your spouse when they do something that you're not happy about? Have you spoken about it? You have to be forgiving in every situation. You have to know that you're in this now. You gotta be in it. You gotta live with it. You gotta live with this person. So you gotta be a forgiving person. You gotta be forgiving every time they do something. Not them doing it deliberately, because obviously people don't go out to do things deliberately to upset the other person. But they might be doing it subconsciously, But every time you just learn to have a forgiving heart that, hey, you know what, they do it on purpose. Or just clean up after them. Clean up after them and say, okay, I did this, you left this here and I cleaned up. You left this here and I did this. That way you know that, your spouse is not gonna, they can see what you're doing. They can see that you're actually maybe struggling with it, but you're trying not to have an argument about it. And because they are doing it to help you, you find even you who's doing those things that they don't like, you start to change. You start to change because you can see that the spouse is forgiving, the spouse is actually helping you, and they're not actually being very harsh. They're not being angry every time you leave things around or not doing what you expect them to do. and that way you'll have a happy relationship. Discussing these issues in the presence of a third party, such as the pastor or a therapist, can help. Again, of course, as we mentioned earlier there, again, bring it to someone who is of authority, minister of religion, a pastor, a therapist. Go to them. This is when all else fails. You're not able to resolve it by yourselves. You're not able to come to a conclusion that this is how we need things are. Go to someone who is independent. Speak to them. Hear their view. What do they have to say about it? You'll always find that they'll have an opinion of something that you didn't know about that could help you in your relationship or in your marriage. And that way, you'll have a happy home. That way, you'll have a happy relationship. And always talking about what you're going through is even therapy in itself. So talking to a third party can really help propel your relationship into where God wants it to be, and where you want it to be, and you'll have a very happy home. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like our channel, tell people about it, share, and we're getting on very well, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.